Hello, this is Victor. I'm here with a new Paint and Talk. This time inspired by Eric Beer or Eric Beer 40K, I should say. And yeah, I was inspired by the video that he was told painting 20 millimeters at level. So it's one video of the wonders of painting 20 millimeters to a level. So the first thing is, what is interesting is he's talking about different painting levels. I always find hard for myself to understand levels, but I think the levels he's putting there are quite self-explanatory. He's talking about below tabletop level, over tabletop level, display, and then golden lemon. Okay, and I think I have the feeling that anybody can reach the display level according to Eric Beer description, and I will put the link if you want to watch also the video from Eric Beer. I guess most of you are also watching this video, so but I guess I just want to follow the conversation. So in this video I want to talk about how we can improve our level, some tips I use to improve, and how to keep at the same time motivated. Okay, some tips that I use, some things that motivate me and maybe can help you, and other things that are motivating other people to paint and maybe can help, because there are a lot of ways to motivate yourself. There is people that is in the hobby just to paint and they don't need motivation. But even in the cases, sometimes we feel demotivated, we don't feel the mood to paint. So the first thing I will recommend, if you want to paint or you like to paint, the first thing you need to do is find a way that if you want to paint, it's fast. So if you have the space, create your table to paint. Don't have your hand. So if you have, for example, just 10 minutes, you can dedicate this 10 minutes just to paint a little bit. Not for 10 minutes can be hard, but if you have 30 minutes, you can dedicate this complete 30 minutes to paint. It's very painful when you need 10 minutes to set up your paint, and then you need another 10 minutes to tie up what your painting space, because this means that you need at least 20 minutes that you are not painting. So you will not put yourself to paint unless you have at least 1 hour that you can dedicate to that. Okay, so this was happening to me a lot when at the beginning, when I was starting, that I did not have a fixed place to paint. Yeah, it was harder for me to put myself to paint something, because I was always hesitating. Okay, I don't want now to start taking out all my stuff and then putting on the table and so on. So, okay, so this is one of the first recommendations. Try to find a way, and maybe you need just a type of box that you can put everything in when you finish, and it's just a couple of minutes to put everything. Or you can even leave, I don't know, if you have a corner or cupboard that you just can close, and once it's closed nobody see, you just open this and then everything is hand. Depends on everybody, but I think you should investigate how you can make your life easier, and when you have some time, you can dedicate this full time to painting. I think this is a very important point on the motivation. Then the other thing is, paint something that motivates you. Okay, and I'm talking this because recently I was having the experience. I was painting the peasants for the Bretonian. Okay, and I realized when I'm painting a big block or a big unit, normally you start with a high motivation, but when you are in the 10th minute, you start losing your motivation. Okay, so put some prizes in between. So you paint these 10 yeomen, for example, or these 10, I will say, peasants, and then you get tired. Take a break and paint another thing. Okay, paint a thing where that it's completely different and it's challenging you in a different way. Once you clean up or you have done something different, you will go back to this unit with more motivation. So there is nothing wrong. You don't need to force yourself to start a project. The other thing that can happen is sometimes when we are painting big miniatures like the one I'm painting now, Mortarion, you can arrive to a point that you don't know how to proceed, or you are not clear what color to apply, or you don't know what to do, or you don't feel motivated. Stop painting this miniature, go for something easier, paint this thing easier, and then come back to this big miniature later on. This can happen especially when you paint big monsters or when you paint big vehicles. Okay, and this is why I consider it is important that the army that you choose to paint, it's an army that you like aesthetically and is motivating you. If you're painting an army where you don't like the miniatures, it's going to be hard for you to dedicate time to paint these miniatures. Okay, and every one of us, we have this army that we prefer to paint over the others. Okay. So this is my second piece on advice. Then how to keep improving, and I think here I go back to what Nick was talking. So according to him, and I will say I'm more or less I'm aligned, although the borders are not rigid and all on things painted. He's explaining that for him below tabletop is just applying paint without applying special techniques, no washes, no shades, no dry brush, so just apply the paint where is needed. Okay. The second step, tabletop, is just apply a wash and a highlight. So a wash and a dry brush, for example, well applied correctly, and then you have a nice tabletop. I have to say that just applying a wash, if you apply correctly and you have how to work on the washes and just very little highlight, you can achieve really interesting tabletop miniatures that from far will look great. I have seen a lot of armies that when with very easy steps they can look great on the tabletop, and most of the time people will see this as a well painted army, even though you can apply very easy and fast techniques. If you need an army to be painted fast, this will be my recommendation. If you do a nice job just doing these base colors and washes and a little bit of highlights, you don't need to spend no time on the details. You can just do the armor, 3-4 colors, do the main parts. You can come later on to this army and start painting the details later. So you can make an army paint an army a quite a basic style, but if you do it correctly and you just apply the base colors and some washes and highlights, and you don't pay attention to details, you can leave the details, for example, in black, and you don't pay attention to them, you don't highlight them right now, you don't lose too much time, and you can do, for example, Space Marines very fast, or you can do an army very fast. So this is another way to motivate you, because then you will see that you have a lot of miniatures painted quite fast, and then later on you can dedicate more time to the details. Okay, and here there was a video done by, a series of videos done by Eric Beer 40K when he painted Dark Elder army in 1 month. I think was 2,000 points on on 7th edition, so I don't know how many points they are. But it was quite a nice army. So just if you choose the right strategy, just with a very fast painting job, you can go do something that is looking quite well on the table. The next step is going to what is defined over this level, okay, and is when you start doing more precise highlights. So normally the dry brush is quite rough, so if you start doing blending or something more highlights, or you do a couple of highlights instead of just one highlight, then you can go a little bit higher on looking. Here it's difficult to find really a good definition for me. It's more when you look the method that you have he was talking about the number of highlights. Of course, if you have done a good job on doing just these highlights, then you can do a second step on your army and later on move your army in higher painting level. So it is another way to keep improving on. So you can go back to these miniatures that you did not pay too much attention, and then you can practice to go to a higher level in painting. And then yeah, he was talking about the display level and the golden demon. Golden demon for me, yeah, it's not even on my level. Display level is when you start working more on the bases, you do more bases on the context of the miniature, you spend time on the bases, and you spend time highlighting all the details. For me, the tabletop is when you don't really pay too much attention to the details. For example, let me show you a miniature. So if I look at tabletop, maybe you don't pay too much attention to all these dots here, or you don't pay too much attention, you don't want to do weatherings, or you don't want to do, you just do the basic paint job, so you don't pay attention to the eyes, you don't pay attention to most of the details that have the miniature. You just, but even though, for example, the faces, even if you don't do the eyes, for tabletop is not important, because it's not going to be seen when you have big block of guys. Okay, so yeah, so what then? How we can improve on our painting? And here I would recommend, there are a lot of tutorials out there, and for me the point is that you find first the techniques where you feel more comfortable. So the first step for me is find the techniques and the paints that you feel more comfortable with. So for me, for example, the washes is one of the parts that I feel more comfortable. I like to control all of the washes, and I don't like, for example, dry brush. I don't do too much dry brush on my miniatures. Okay, and try to practice this technique and to make it each time better. And at the same time, try to test other techniques in the next, not in every miniature you have to test a new technique, just when you try to do try to find a new technique that you want to try, and try to practice. And most likely when you practice a new technique, and this is the point that you have to be careful, because all of us is happening, when you practice a new technique, if you, for example, are mastering a lot dry brushing, and you do it very nice and very thin and it's working very well, the first time you will try to do blending to substitute the dry brushing, you will realize that it's not working for you. So you have to be also patient. So you have to be open to make mistakes. If you try to paint to avoid mistakes, you will be scared to try new techniques. So you will be stuck on the techniques that you are always using. So my recommendation is, the first recommendation is, if you want to learn, don't be scared to do mistakes. Of course, the point is, try these techniques on a miniature that is not the most important, is not the centerpiece of the army. I will consider that you don't want to try techniques and do experiments on a centerpiece of an army. You want to do this maybe on a hero that is not that important, or on a leader of a unit, just to see if you can test a new technique, maybe on the first unit of a new army, or if you do a skirmish, and if you're doing a small warband or something like that, on this warband. So try to do it in a places where, if you mess up, because you have the risk to mess up, you are not going to feel bad. And of course, there is always the last step, is to scrap the paint and start over, but let's try to avoid this. I never have to say that I never remove the paint of a miniature that I paint myself. I prefer to keep the mistake and learn from this mistake how to improve in the next miniature, how to do it better on the next miniature. The other option for me, one place where I like to try techniques sometimes, is on terrain. If you are doing terrain, yeah, if you screw up on the terrain, later on you can go there, put another color, dry brush, and the terrain is clean. It's not watch anymore. Okay, but all the techniques that you want to, you have to be aware that any technique that you want to master or any technique that you want to know will need practice, and each time you start using this technique, you will not do it well. One of the most clear examples for me is the freehand. The freehand maybe is one of the things that can be the most scary thing and can be very intimidating at the beginning. So for me, the way to start going into freehand and start risking myself more and more on the freehand, first is I get inspired by other painters that they do extremely well done freehand, and I start practicing on miniatures where if I make a mistake, I don't care too much. So, and I start with easy geometrical shapes, easy things that are not too difficult to reproduce. Don't do freehand in a full unit because you will most likely, or complex freehand on a full unit because you will die before you finish. And here I come to my last point. Try to adapt, try to be realistic on what is achievable. And this is also in terms of not getting demotivated. If you want to paint an army of escapades to display level, be aware that you will need years to finish. And it's going to be there will be a moment that will be very boring. Because if you have to play 100 escapades to a display level, you maybe die in the process. So be prepared for a very long project and be prepared to alternate with other things. So really plan for that. If you really want to do that, for example, you have to plan that you will not be able to do it for the next tournament, and you will need time, years, and sometimes you will need other methods to break the monotony of painting always the same type of miniatures. So be realistic and plan on what, and we all make these mistakes. So when I start my escape, and I put the scavenge because when I start painting scavenge, I wanted to do them at the best level I can. And I start painting scavenge one by one. Then I realized that I only have 10 painted, I painted my first 10 scavenge, and I spent I don't know how much time. I say if I have to follow this speed, I will never finish an army. Okay, and then you realize that you have to start. I was doing even some freehand on some of the scavenge, so I realized that why I don't focus the time on doing well, a good level for the leaders of the unit, for the standard bearer of the unit, okay? But then for the normal troops, I go for much easier techniques, almost tabletop, or a little bit above tabletop if you want, but you don't spend as much time as you spend on the leaders. And on the other side, if you do, for example, Stormcast Eternals, you can spend much more time on each unit, on each miniature, okay, because it's less. So also plan, be realistic on how your army have to look like, how many miniatures you have to paint. Try to, I always have, I receive a lot of questions, how much you need to paint a miniature. Normally I don't control how much time I need to paint a miniature, but I know how much time I need to paint, for example, a unit. And I don't know by miniature because I know that I'm painting normally more than one miniature at the same time. Okay, but if I have to calculate how much time I need to paint 5 marines, I know that I will need a little bit more than 1 week. So if I have to paint a full army of space marines, so every 5 I have to take into account that I will need, I don't know, let's put 2 days per marine. So this will give you this will give me a realistic timing to paint the marines, but then I need to paint vehicles, and then I have to calculate how much time. And then I recommend when you do this the first time, you put a timeline, you take a calendar, and then you will consider when you're going to finish the army, because this will give you realistic timing on when you will have this army painted. And although it can look demotivating at the beginning, if you start achieving your goals that you have put in the calendar, you will feel more and more motivated to keep painting because you are realizing that you go according to the plan. If you find that the plan was wrong, because this can happen as well, I recommend you stop, you review the plan, you make a new plan, or you just, and if you get bored of painting the army, just paint a different thing. I always recommend you painting, if painting is becoming boring, routinary or monotone, break this monotony and paint another thing. This will refresh you and will keep you ready to restart with your army. I think I'm rambling too much here in this video, but I have a lot of ideas that I want to share, a lot of points that were triggered by the video from Edith Beer. So yeah, I think these are all my main points. So keep learning. There is always new techniques that you can learn. The other thing that is important for me is share your work for a critique. Make pictures of your work and look the pictures in the screen. You will be amazed how different they look on the screen. Sometimes you see more when you make pictures, and the first time you will do pictures, you will feel demotivated. You will find that your work is crap. This happened to me a lot of times. Okay, I don't know why on camera, and I think it's because on the screen you can make everything bigger. You see the mistakes much bigger. Okay, so for me, making pictures, look where you do the mistakes. It will give you clues where to improve, how to do it better. Sometimes I think I have the feeling the camera is contrasting more than our eye, and the camera can pop up mistakes that maybe when you look at the miniature in real life does not look that bad. So be careful when you do pictures. Don't get demotivated. Be aware that all the miniatures look worse on camera than on real life. Okay. Second point: if you look a great painter, use it in a positive way. Don't judge yourself comparing to golden demon painters, because if not, you will end up more demotivated. Use the golden demon painters to learn, not to compare to yourself. Use other painters that are over your level, and I do this continuously to understand how other painters are approaching the same miniature, to get ideas for future, because sometimes all these ideas, all the color mixing, all how to color schemes, and also weatherings and all these type of things, there is a lot of theories, a lot of trainings, a lot of tutorials, but a big part is experience. Okay, some people will need more time, some other people will need less time to master some of the techniques or some of the color, but use other painters to understand how the colors combine. And from time to time, look galleries of painting with all levels, and you will realize that you are improving versus the average if you keep pushing yourself. Okay? If you keep pushing yourself, you will realize that someday you will realize that you are doing better than what you were expecting. Sharing your work, I think it's a nice thing. If you want to share your work, I have a Facebook. If you want to ask for opinion, there you can go and ask for opinion. I recommend to share your work and ask for opinion. Other painters, other people can see things that maybe you cannot see. Be aware when you expose yourself to other people. Most of the people, I will say 95% of the people will give positive feedback, constructive, or they will tell you, oh, very well painted, that's all. Okay, and this is very motivating. Don't put too much attention to if there is a guy that comes to you and is a internet troll. Okay, if it's just trolling you. But if a person is coming to you and is giving you advice on how to improve, get this as the more valuable feedback. If you don't want to add feedback, just give it in the when you show the just not to share. But I think one way we need to improve, and this is in all things in life, the best way to improve is to ask for feedback. So this is also for me very important. I always like when I receive feedback, if something can be done. And then if you want, there is the P&P. I will put also the link in the description below, the P&P community. That is a place where you can ask for feedback. The people will give you feedback. There is great painters. There is even a golden demon painter there that can give you very valuable feedback. She's putting and he's giving the feedback according to the level of each painter. Okay, but she's giving really a valuable feedback to new painters and how to improve, how to do the next step. Because the important point for me is you have to see this as steps, as what I can do next to improve. Once I have achieved that, what is the next step to improve, and what I can do next to do this better. So this is always this type of thing. But don't think that we were painting like that the good painters were painting like that from the first day, because this is not realistic. It's not realistic for anybody. Okay. And I think these are all the bases, all the points that I wanted to discuss. I think I touched a lot of points. Just let's see if I can summarize a little bit that to make it more structured. So, in terms of motivating, if you first try to give prizes to yourself. Okay, try to make if you achieve some target, to make something that you really want to paint. Don't paint all these miniatures that you like to paint at the beginning and then leave all the boring miniatures at the end. Try to combine both type of miniatures and break the monotony by painting other things that are not. You can paint a piece of terrain, you can paint maybe a miniature from your friend if you don't want to invest in a new army, but try to refresh yourself painting other things, because painting other things that are not always the same will expose you to use different techniques as well. Try to look for feedback, okay, and try to learn or to make small steps and to learn new techniques or new ways to apply the same techniques each time. Try to, for example, if you always do the fur in the same way, maybe in the next miniature you can try a different way to do the fur. If you have think, if there is a technique that someone is or you like more how it's looking, or you want to look for a different, you're looking for a different finishing. Okay. Try to get inspiration from the other painters and not get demotivated. This can sound quite easy to do, but sometimes we want to jump and paint like the heavy metal painters in the White Dwarf. These painters are professional painters. They are dedicating. You also have to take into scope how much time you dedicate to paint and how much time these people is dedicating to paint, and how much time these painters are dedicating for a single miniature. So this is very important. And then be realistic on what is your achievement. You are painting to have an army, or you're painting to participate on a contest. If you're painting just to have a nice army, a nice looking army, maybe you don't want to invest as much time in each single miniature. If you're painting for contest, it's the opposite. You want really to dedicate a lot of time, and you are not. Let me put it in an easy way. If you paint to have an army, you are more concerned on productivity. If you paint for a contest, maybe you are more concerned not on productivity but on final quality. Okay, although both are on quality, I guess you understand what I mean. So be realistic on your targets is what I mean there. This was the other advice. And I think that's all what I want to talk here. Please leave in the comment below. I will put, if I don't forget, on the description the link to Edic Beer 40K, the link to P&T if you want to participate in a community where to share your work, and I also will put the link to my Facebook, to the Facebook group I created, in case you want to share there the work and you want feedback from me and how to improve. I create this Facebook group just for other people to share with me the work. I think I will do a video just to, and I can do videos and talk about this more in my channel if you think this is interesting, what people can share in the Facebook site. So that's all for now. I hope you find this interesting. Please leave in the comment below what do you think, if you like this type of videos or not, and give a like if you have liked it. And as usual, thanks a lot for watching and see you again later. Bye.